Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Patriot Nation TV. I'm your host, Tim Davis, aka Professor X, your New Age Patriot with a 1776 attitude. Just one man, one opinion, connecting the dots. It is Sunday, April 25th, 2021, and this show is Joe Biden's America. This week in Joe Biden's America. So that's what we're going to dedicate this show for. And before moving on, it's going to say something that crosses my mind. I think it should cross everybody's mind if you're out there wondering what's going on. Did you ever wonder if half the population has been under some kind of hypnotic spell that didn't work on the rest of us? Half our populations are lunatics. Total lunatics, including our representatives. Think about that. Leave a comment. Tell me what you think about that. So moving on to this week in Joe Biden's America, the latest incredibly stupid Democratic policy in their decisions is to let kids fight with knives. That's what they're saying. That's what a lot of these representatives are saying. Let kids fight with knives. So that brings me to what's going on this week in Joe Biden's America. Our border is still in a crisis. Tens of thousands are still pouring into our border illegally. Yet we still don't have anybody complaining about kids in cages. There are at least 700% capacity filled at this point. I mean, it's almost it's funny. It's almost comical. Like nobody cares anymore because a Democrat and Joe Biden's in office. You can't make this stuff up. You can't make this stuff up. Also, Joe Biden's administration that started with the Obama administration and run by the Democratic cabal, criminal outlaws. Their war on law enforcement has reached new levels. And by events that happened this week, let me just start off by saying, for the record, if somebody is trying to stab me, I'd really appreciate it if you shoot them for me. I really would. Because I would do the same for you. So with that being said, with this war on our law enforcement, you gotta ask yourself, what happens when the good ones say they had enough and walk away? Well, where will America be? Where will we be? And there really is no bigger critic than myself on some of the tactics, that law enforcement has done over the years. But I use it as more of a shock treatment to wake them up, not to follow arbitrary laws that violate the Constitution and their oath. Like, I could never imagine America without law enforcement. It's insane. This whole defunding of law enforcement is insane. We need them. They're our first line of defense, I believe, against tyranny, domestically and foreignly, and so on. Also, I'd like to point out, this week, approximately 885,000 people have claimed unemployment benefits. And at the same time, the Democrats, under Joe Biden's leadership, are proposing a $4 trillion jobs plan. And just a year ago, we had the lowest unemployment in American history without using taxpayers' money. Just makes no sense. Just makes absolutely no sense. Then we get to this COVID. Just to keep the ticker going. Today, probably we're about 392, 93 days of the 14 days to flatten the curve. And we just reached a 250,000 death rate of COVID. under Joe Biden's watch and administration. That's also happening. And as Professor X would say to you, to try to put in layman terms what the government is saying to us all, using their logic. If you have any of these symptoms, such as normal temperature, no cough, lots of energy, a good appetite, you may just have COVID-19 and not know it. Get tested ASAP. Help us inflate the cases, the figures, and ruin more lives by extending lockdowns further. Sincerely, your government. That's what they want to do. Me, one man, one opinion. I say no more lockdowns. No more lockdowns. Gotta look at it like this. The freedoms you surrender today, or the freedoms your children and grandchildren will never know existed. When a government bribery money comes to an end, because it will come to an end eventually, do you really think you're going to have a job or a business to go back to? No. Any business that puts a roof over somebody's head and puts food in somebody's belly, in their family's belly, is an essential worker. Also, medical tyranny, being sick until proven healthy, is no less tyrannical than being guilty until proven innocent. And that's where we are. That's where we are. Also this week in Joe Biden's America, Joe Biden actually had the audacity to go on TV. I mean, he said it during his campaign. He wants to unify everybody, unify America, yada, yada, yada. But as he's coming on TV, he's praying for an outcome of the George Floyd Chauvin case. It's a topic I wanted to discuss. I was going to discuss it tonight, but I'm not going to do it. Because I have very different opinions on a lot of people. But Joe Biden wants to unify us under belief we are all racists. How do you unify somebody when you claim that we're all racists and claim that we're a systematic racism country? And this brings me to this systematic racism. Systematic racism is such a perfect Marxist formulation. It legitimizes an entire society without anyone in particular. So it generates little opposition. It signifies everything and nothing simultaneously. It can't be proven or disproven. It's a genius propaganda tool perfected by these liberal wackadoos. And people are falling for it. Race matters only to racists. The rest of us care about character. That's it. That's a fact. Race only matters to racists. The rest of us care about character. So this brings me to the great Booker T. Washington, who once wrote, there is a certain class of race problem solvers who don't want the patient to get well. Because as long as the disease holds out, they have not only an easy means of making a living, but also an easy medium through which to make themselves prominent before the public. And that's what we see. Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Maxine Waters, LeBronda James, the basketball player. That's what these people are doing. They're making a profit off of it with no solutions. But don't worry. The day will come, hopefully in a not too distant future, when those not permanently affected by the brainwashing brought on by the media, big tech, academia, and the Democratic Party will rise up against them. The day's coming. The day of reckoning is coming. Don't be mistaken. It's coming. There's no doubt about it. So now this basically brings me to a sad event that took place this week. A tragic event that involved a 16-year-old girl, Miss Bryant. I've had a few debates, a few conversations on Facebook and other social media, and I just believe that nobody's really thinking what's going on. They're not thinking. Everything's based on emotion. You're being fed BS, and nobody knows how to think anymore. So here's my little take on that. Number one, it's a tragic event for Miss Bryant. May she rest in peace. Sure, there's been a lot of adults around her that failed her, including her own father, who brought her to a fight and instigated it. But here's the reality of it. You get people talking about, oh, she's a 16-year-old child. No, it has nothing to do with that. At 16, you know right from wrong. The bottom line is this. She called 911. The police responded to the 911 call. As the officers arrived, upon arrival, the officer gets out of the car and asks what's going on. As soon as he does that, Miss Bryant chose, of her own free will, to attack a woman with a knife in front of a cop, while her father pushed another woman down and proceeded to kick her in the head. That's what happened. We're not even talking about the grown man in the video trying to kick a girl in the head while she's on the ground. Sure. Yeah, the problem is the cops. Men kicking girls in the head. Girls trying to stab other girls with kitchen knives. But the cops, they're the bad guys. Come on, people. Make sense of it. It makes no sense. That officer that had to make a 1 to 2 second decision upon arrival of a 911 call, as he's approaching and asks what's going on, sees a woman. He doesn't know if it's a woman, a teenager, has no idea who the person is. Go ballistic, charge a female with the help of her father and push another female down, and then pin another female up against the car. And in the motion of pinning her against the car, was taking a knife and ready to stab, ready to lunge it into her. Attempted murder. One man, one opinion. The officer did the right thing and shot her. He eliminated the threat. And his backlash, LeBronda James, LeBronda because he's a little B-I-T-C-H. Little B-I-T-C-H. Yes, LeBron, you are. Putting the man's name out there, making threats to an officer that saved a person's life from being murdered. Then you got the other B-I-T-C-H's out there on social media crying about it, making excuses for an individual's decisions that they made. It's not good. It's not a good look. It's unexcusable. She knew what she was doing. You committed an act of trying to kill somebody in front of a cop or a police officer. So, as the race baiters, the anti-coppers out there that want to blame everybody except for the person that actually commits the crimes, ask yourself this: whether you're a cop or a civilian, what would you do? Instead of blaming everybody else, what would you do as an individual? Just say you're a civilian who has the right to carry a concealed weapon. You're in a mall. You're in a restaurant. You're outside your own house. And somebody's attacking your mother, your daughter, your wife with a knife. Or if you're hanging out with your friends, just hanging out, and a group of, and a woman shows up and attacks your friend's daughter, your wife, and you have the means to protect you, legally have the means to protect your friend's family, your own family members, what do? You let this person wield that weapon and murder a loved one? Or do you do what the cop did? End the threat. And the threat was ended. Because when the cops got there, the threat no longer existed. The women were retreating. And when the women were retreating, the threat no longer applied. There was the 16-year-old girl who was out of control, decided on her own actions, willingly and knowingly, to try to commit murder. So, like I said, it's a tragic incident. It's a touchy incident, but let's hold the person accountable for their actions. Stop making excuses. Stop blaming the cops. Grow up, people. Take your head out of your behinds and think. Let's make America think again. So that's my little message for today in Joe Biden's America. And as sad as it may be, the future's not looking too bright with this reign of terror running our government. But let's not give up, people. Let's not give up. It's going to get better. It's got to get better. We're Americans, for Christ's sake. We're Americans. Let's not be silent anymore. And that's it. So for Patriot Nation, I got to ask, please hit like and hit subscribe if you're new to the show. And I guess I will talk to you guys in a day or two. And we'll see what happens. All right, so good night. God bless. God bless America. God bless you. Thank you. Good night.